She made the statement about Hillary Clinton. I've heard the statement for years. I had no idea it was Michelle Obama. She made the statement that if you can't take care of your own house, you can't take care of the White House. You know, I've heard that statement. Oh, come on. Look, you know better than that. That was during the campaign. She said about Hillary Clinton, you can't take care of your own house, meaning Bill Clinton, then how can you take care of the White House? It was a vicious statement.
The atmosphere in the studio shifted the moment Michelle Obama's name entered the conversation. Donald Trump sat comfortably inside that environment, speaking with confidence and moving from criticism to praise of himself with ease. Then he turned toward Michelle Obama. The remark came with a familiar edge. He called her nasty, delivering it as though the word itself should end the discussion. A few reactions came from the crowd, but not the wave of laughter or excitement that might have been expected. Instead, the room felt strangely quiet for a moment. The insult seemed to hang in the air. Perhaps that was because Michelle Obama had spent years building a public image around something very different. Through criticism, pressure, and political division, she had carried herself with discipline and composure. She spoke about education, families, and hope. She encouraged young people to believe their lives mattered and that their future could be larger than the circumstances around them.
His erratic behavior, his obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon, a known slumlord, a predator found liable for sexual abuse, all of this, while we pick apart Kamala's answers from interviews that he doesn't even have the courage to do, y'all. Please, do not hand our fates over to the likes of Trump, who knows nothing about us.
Her words, "When they go low, we go high," became bigger than a line from a speech. For many people, they became a reminder that public life did not always need to be driven by anger. That was why the attack felt different. Disagreement itself is not unusual. People argue about politics every day. They challenge policies, speeches, and decisions. That is part of democracy. And then attention shifted toward Barack Obama. People waited. The question felt simple. Would he answer with anger? Would he strike back with another insult? Would he turn the moment into a louder fight?
I think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient.
Trump's political style often creates strong reactions. Sharp words are thrown into a room and emotion follows. But Obama had spent years showing a different approach to public pressure. He understood that not every challenge required a louder response. When Obama finally spoke, the mood changed immediately. He did not sound furious. He spoke slowly and carefully, in the way many people remembered him speaking during difficult moments throughout his years in public life. And that calmness became powerful because of the contrast it created. Trump's insult had been loud. Obama's response felt steady. Instead of attacking Trump personally, he spoke about values. He talked about leadership and character. He spoke about responsibility and about what public service looks like when cameras disappear and applause ends. He reminded people that Michelle Obama's reputation had not been built overnight. It had been built through years of work, discipline, and consistency. Through pressure and criticism, she had maintained the same sense of dignity that people had watched for years. He never needed dramatic language. He was defending an idea that many people felt politics had started losing, the idea that decency still matters. Without raising his voice, he placed years of service and character on one side of the scale and one passing insult on the other. Then he allowed people to decide for themselves which carried more weight. For many older Americans watching, the moment carried another meaning. They remembered times when restraint itself was respected. They remembered when leaders were expected to disagree strongly while still carrying themselves with seriousness and dignity. And in that moment, Obama reminded them of something important. Calmness is not weakness. Restraint is not surrender. Dignity is not silence. Sometimes dignity becomes the strongest response because it refuses to let anger decide the moment. Trump had tried to make Michelle Obama appear smaller. Instead, the response made the insult itself appear smaller. That was why people remembered the exchange. Not because of who shouted louder, not because of who delivered the sharper attack. People remembered it because they saw someone refuse to let bitterness control the conversation. In a political culture filled with noise, outrage, and endless conflict, that kind of control felt unusual. The larger lesson reached beyond one political moment. It reflected two very different ideas of leadership. One depends on conflict and reaction. The other depends on patience and discipline. One tries to dominate every moment. The other tries to rise above it. By the end, the conversation was no longer really about the insult itself. It had become about character. Because words can create noise, but dignity can outlast noise long after the room becomes quiet again.